Hi, this is Sherry Veronica, and with me in studio is Victor Calendar, and we want to talk about the schools in Barbados. I did a blog just a few seconds ago, and we want to talk about that with the parent telling me that the kids are not focused. They only want to go to the schools and take lunch money and wait after schools to create a scene and fight, and they're not interested in working, they're not interested in studying, they're not interested in anything. And we hear about the principals now who only want to drive in their big cars and live in their big houses. They're disconnected from the community. But I'm going to bring Victor into the studio. We're going to talk about what's going on in Barbados at the school level, at the secondary school level. Victor, welcome into the studio.
Hey, Sherry, thank you for allowing me into the studio today. At least today I'm not at work, I'm at home, so I have a little bit of time to sit and talk with you. Thank you for inviting me in.
You're welcome.
I go back to maybe it's a bygone age, maybe I'm caught up in nostalgia of having grown up in the 70s and people were committed to community. Community started, of course, in our homes. It started with those of us who had parents in there, like I did, you did. We had parents in there. And it extended outwardly to our neighbors, who are of course were our extended family and others. Today, I'm hard pressed to find that. We've taken on another cultural persuasion in Barbados that's not Barbadian for the most part. So we have appropriated another cultural identity that's not Barbadianized, and as a result, we went from, I don't know if there's any difference here, or I'm just grasping and pulling at straws. If my effort is totally Lilliputian in nature, you guys out there could tell me what you think and criticize me as much as you want. I welcome it. But we went from headmasters and headmistresses to principals to whatever. It seems like somewhere in Barbados's school teaching DNA, something has been lost. I'm not blaming it only on the school teachers. I think parenting has a lot to do with it as well, and the community-based level of outreach that Barbados used to have when I was growing up, as opposed to now based on what I've read. As I said to you privately, I don't think that anyone should ascend to any role in teaching or anything without a good psychological profile. We need to give, especially people who deal with the precious nature of shaping young people's minds. We need to have them properly psychological profiled. We need to know as much about them. If these people have been traumatized in the past themselves, I don't think that's a good mix. That makes good for them going into the classroom, especially in this day and age, and teaching. Sharing. The school that you profiled, that guy could have two other assistant principals or deputy principals with him. It's not the workload, Sherry. It's not the workload alone. It's the mentality, the mind space that goes into teaching the kids today. A lot of people today are not, they're prepared for the gains financially that would come from perhaps having a job, as opposed to the commitment to solving the dilemma of what is transpiring with these young people in their homes, in their communities, and more especially in their schools. And therein lies a problem that needs to be looked at, that needs to be fixed. The problem that's facing Barbados, as is facing most other countries in the world, is the psychology of community and the psychology of self. And most of us in the world are under a psychology and a disillusionment that is pervasive. And until we're able to understand that at its least common denominator and be able to address it honestly, we're going to have problems. We have holidays for everything, Sherry Veronica. Why isn't our government, I'm talking now specifically to my Prime Minister in Barbados, why don't we have a Day of Atonement? The word atonement means simply at one-ment. We need to be at one with the nature of Barbados and at one with ourselves to understand the genesis of the problems that we face. There's a saying, all money isn't good money. You know, all progress isn't good progress. So we need to look top to bottom at where we can fix, where the issues can be fixed, how we can process information and solve the problems that face Barbadian kids. There is a disconnect. And whether or not that disconnect starts in the home and extends outwardly is something we need to be able to understand. We don't need a crime and punishment society, but we need to be able to hold people accountable as well for what they do or fail to do. I'm not blaming this entirely on teachers because I think that they, for all intents and purposes, are probably the most valuable people that we can have in a society. But they're not armed right. They're not given the right tools to solve the problems that plague young minds. Two concepts in Barbados that we should be looking at massively. The way we treat the very youngest people in our society and the way we treat the oldest people in our society. In there would be, I would add a third, would probably the way we treat females, women in our society. But the two most important would be children and the elderly. We've gone from the womb. Are we going to go to the tomb with a continuation of the same falsities that we've continuously told ourselves relative to the way our children, the next generation, their children are treated, Sherry Veronica? These are questions we have to ask. I'm not blaming this guy at St. Leonard's or teachers anywhere else. Give them the tools to be successful, proper psychological tools to be successful, starting with profiles in psychology. The way they're able to come to their jobs, do their jobs, efficient classroom sizes. You can't go to school and learn if you're hungry. If you're disheveled in your own household. Are you still there, Sherry?
Yes, I'm here. I'm right here.
Yeah, you just can't. So, I mean, I would hope that with reference to Barbados being a model for education in the Caribbean, that we look at education differently. We get predatory people out of education, pedophiles. I know what that is to suffer the injustice of being predated upon as a young boy at Ellerslie. I know what that is. You get up and you go to school, but you're going there because there's no alternative, nothing given to you and your parents, and you can't tell them what has transpired, your parents, what has transpired with you or anybody in the community that you trust. So how many more children must suffer this injustice? How many more teachers will stand idly by when children are being taken advantage of just because they're getting a paycheck?
Well, like you said, there's a disconnect. I think it has always been there. I think it will always continue to be like it is because people are all about the money. People just want to have a vehicle, they want to have a big house, and they want to have a young girl walking through the door, or a couple of them walking through the door. That's what it is. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I think that, again, we have to return to a sense of community, starting within the family. We need to atone. And that's an understanding that there have been sins in the past, and there probably, in a realistic world, be sins in the future. But we talk about them. A society that does not speak about its ills cannot get well. So at the lowest common level, we talk about our sins to each other, sins of commission and sins of omission. We just talk about them. We just talk and have a resolve that we're going to make better, make good. Have the audacity of hope. I believe that I'm an eternal optimist, and sometimes I get in trouble with you because you say, "Hey, Vic, this is a stretch. You're too optimistic." But I feel as if there is a massive disconnect with school children.
I think it has. I think it has always been there. I think what you describe and you talk about going back, I don't think there was ever any going back because it has always been there. Young people have always been predated upon, and people have no conscience. It's the same thing, but people have cell phones now. Even children have cell phones, and they're uploading things on the World Wide Web, so you get to see things. But we are not seeing anything that didn't exist when our fathers were boys and when their fathers were boys. I think it's the same playing field. It's just they have cell phones.
But you're correct to the extent that in the 1940s, 1950s, the same complaints that my late father had about a predator was advanced to the 1970s, 20 years later, with me. The same person who attempted to predate upon young boys when my father was a young boy at school. Fast forward to a generation year later with me, it was the same thing. And there is a problem. There is a problem when we cannot have conversations about the decency of existing. Do you understand the decency of existing? We reward people for miscreant behavior.
Yeah. They name buildings after them and hospitals after them and parts of this and parts of that.
It's okay to be miscreant.
Yes, they're rewarded.
We have to be able to come to some level of conditionality that it is not okay, that there are consequences for our behaviors, whether you are a minister in government, a parliamentarian, a judge, a principal, a cleric, a mom, a dad, a child. We have to start teaching anew that, there are benefits for good behavior and rewards for good behavior. And if you behave badly, you get punished. I'm not trying to make this a crime and punishment situation because in the middle there is rehabilitation. But how can you be rehabilitated if you haven't been habilitated in the first place? I'm not trying to make those arguments. But I am saying is that there is a problem with our children. Not specific to Barbados, but because I'm a Barbadian, I want to talk about my country. I want to talk about what I see on social media. But it seems to have been global in its nature. So can we fix Barbados by at least acknowledging the first part of knowing that there is a problem is knowing that there's a problem, acknowledging we've got a problem. There is a saying, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So, I feel that we, you, me, and others, our collective has to be, if we care about future generations, to bring issues to light, whether people disagree with us or not, and deal with the issues, our perceptions or our realities, and deal with the issues. This is what I see. This is what I see. The child that's failing today is going to be the adult that fails tomorrow. The child that's criminalized today from youth is going to be the future criminal tomorrow. Are we willing to spend more on building penal colonies than we are on building educational institutions? Those are the questions that we must ask ourselves as a people. It's not up to Mia Motley or Dale Marshall or Cynthia Bradshaw, or Kerry Simmons. These guys are not, let me repeat, they are not the culprits involved in any of this. It is each and every Barbadian living in Barbados or expatriated for us to hone in on the proper development of our own country, of ourselves and our country, and building it up and lifting it up. I don't blame them. The blame is with me. I'm looking at myself in the mirror. That's the blame. That's where I start. Do we have a problem? How do we solve the problem? Consequences to actions. Both parents and children. If you have a child going to school in Barbados, and you are telling me that you're so disconnected from your child with whom you spend most of the hours of the day, and you want to hand off that responsibility and burden to a teacher, then that's wrong as two left shoes. So if the child is miscreant in his or her behavior, community is everything. Community service, both parent and child. Let's get away from the nonsense that the parents are not responsible. I'm not responsible. I did everything. Yeah, you did everything to a point. But we still have a problem. So you and the child, part of the legal system, part of the sociological system, part of the psychological system, you do a community-based service. You can't behave in school Monday through Friday, on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, except for church. You do a community-based thing. We get you back into line. It works. It works. It worked in Singapore. It worked everywhere else. Every single system, Sherry, had a plan after World War II, the Marshall Plan to rebuild infrastructurally and otherwise Germany and Europe. We need a Barrow-esque, Motley-esque plan to rebuild Barbados, rebuild its emotional content, to arm children from young with levels of emotional intelligence that's permissive to them doing the right things. Excellence is doing the right thing when no one is looking. Why is that a disconnect in Barbados? Why have we become a country that is more interested in the philosophies of miscreant, Beijing to vulgarity than we are in building up and lifting up our communities in the right way. Our motto is supposed to be pride in industry, right?
Supposed to be.
Where is the pride? Where is it industrious? In nothingness, going to absolute zero gravity. I'm just here asking questions and people get mad, pissed off, whatever. There's a place on this planet when I was in the U.S. military that I went, people knew who Barbados, where Barbados was and who Barbadians were. Not a place I've gone. Furthest places in the world, I could hold my head up high. As a Barbadian, I could. And I was proud, always been proud to do that. Where is our pride today? Am I proud to see young people vulgar, young women? The future of Barbados, the woman carries the torch for civilization. Am I proud to see young women? The only thing I can see on them is their nakedness, their vulgarity. Does that make me feel good about my country? That our greatest export is our vulgarity, the nature of nastiness? Come on, Sherry. I am in the sunset of my life. I want more for my people. I want more. This isn't just about a high school headmaster or principal. It's about the collective aspect of decency in Barbados. Can we blame this man for a school where people just show up and smoke dope? No, it starts at home. It starts with how we embrace decency. It starts with our legislative leaders. It starts with our judiciary.
Okay.
Where it starts.
Thank you, Victor.
You're welcome.
This is Sherry Veronica, Naked Departure Radio.